Hello and welcome guys, my name is Ralph and for today I'm going to take the React challenge and free code camp. So this is my strong suit. Let's go. React created by Facebook is an open source JS library for building user interfaces. It is used to create components, handle state and props, utilize event listeners, and certain lifecycle methods to update data as it changes. So it combines HTML with JavaScript functionality to create its own markup language, Jsx. This section will introduce you to all of these concepts and how to implement them for use with your own projects. Okay, create a simple Jsx element. Okay, I'm not gonna read this one. I'm just going straight through the instructions. The current code uses Jsx to assign a div element to the constant Jsx. Replace the div with an h1 element and add hello Jsx. So yeah, next. Okay, create a complex Jsx element. Define a new constant Jsx that renders a div, and then okay, let's add the parenthesis here. So it's inline, the HTML is inline, which contains the following elements in order: h1, p, and an unordered list that contains 3 li items. An ordered list with 3 li items. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you can include any text you want. So h1 and p. Okay. Okay. Let's run the tests and submit and go to the next challenge. Add comments in Jsx. To put comments inside Jsx, okay. The code editor has a Jsx element similar to what you created last challenge. Add the comments somewhere within the provided div without modifying the existing h1 or p elements. Will this work? Okay. So what are we going to do here? The constant Jsx. So let's put a bracket here. Okay. This one, and cut this here. Okay, the div should contain an h1 tag. Somewhere, so like here. Comment. Okay, I see. Render HTML elements to the DOM. The code editor has a simple JSX component. Use the React DOM render. That render method is you can pass define JSX element directly as in the first. So I need challenge node. Document that get element by ID. Get element by ID. Okay, I think this one is here. Okay, the provided JSX element should render to the DOM node with an ID challenge node. I'm pretty sure that this is just like this. Let's try to read it again. Let's bring this back here. Jsx, comma, build error. Open your browser console to learn more. Okay, what's the error? Okay, the hash. The provided JSX element should render to the DOM node with ID challenge node. Challenge node. Challenge node. Um. Document that get element by ID challenge node. Build error. How about typing this one without the... Okay. I'm pretty stuck with that. Define an HTML class in JSX. Apply a class of my div to the div provided in the JSX code. So class name, div class name equals my div. Okay, that's it. Learn about self-closing JSX tag. Fix the errors in the code editor so that it's a valid JSX and successfully transpiled. Remove comment and change code below this line. Remove comment and change code above this line. Self-closing is like this. The div should return. Okay. Sorry, I haven't read the middle instruction. BR and HR. Next challenge is create a stateless functional component. The code editor has a function called myComponent. Complete the function so it returns a single div element which contains some string of text. Div contains some string of text. Something like this. Some string of text. String of text. I forgot the return. Create a React component. My component is defined in the code editor using class syntax. Finish writing the render method so it returns a div element that contains an h1 with the text hello React. So let's return this with the div and h1 with the text hello React. Submit and go to the next challenge. Create a component with composition. So like this. In the code editor, there is a simple functional component called child component. Meta class parent component. Compose the two together by rendering the child component within the parent component. So like this. I am the child, I am the parent. Let's run the test if it works. Submit and go to the next challenge. Use React to render nested components. So types of food is here. And then looks like we're gonna use the types of fruit here, and let's use the fruit here. Fruits. Okay. Compose React components. Okay, in the code editor, the types of food component is already rendering a component called vegetables. Also, there is the fruits component from the last challenge. Nest two components inside fruits. First non-citrus and then citrus. Both of these components are provided for you behind the scenes. Next, nest the fruits class component. So both of these components are provided for you. Let's try to use the non-citrus. And then citrus. Citrus. Next, there's the fruits here. Okay, I see. Run the test. Render a class component to DOM. Both the fruits and vegetable components are defined for you behind the scenes. Render both components as children of types of food component. Then render types of food to the DOM. There is a div with challenge node available for you to use. Okay, let's fruits and veggies, and then let's react DOM that render component to render is types of food, and then let's target the document that get element by ID. Let's target challenge node here. So fruits and vegetables are not rendering. What is the problem here? Types of food components should render to the DOM within the dim. So let's use that one. Write a React component from scratch. Define a class myComponent that extends React component. Class myComponent that extends React.component. It renders method. Its render method should return a div. And that contains an h1 tag with the text my first React component with an exclamation point. Use this text exactly. The case and function matter. Make sure to call the construction for your component too. So constructor is here. And then React DOM.render the Jsx component, and use the get element by ID node challenge ID. Okay, should contain an h1 tag, my first React component. Render okay, What's the matter here? Should I render the props? I mean the super. Let's just check the console for more errors. Assertion error. I did exactly what I've told. Oh man.
Sorry, I don't understand.
My component. Okay, what's wrong here? What is wrong here? What's wrong here? Um challenge node. Challenge node. What the hell? Pass props to a stateless functional component. So there are calendar and current date components in the code editor. When rendering current date from the calendar component, pass in a property of date assigned to the current date from JavaScript's date object. Then access this prop in the current date component showing the value within the p tags. Note that for prop values to be evaluated as JavaScript, they must be enclosed in curly brackets for instance date. So calendar props. So props.date and then current date should be date equals new date. Let's enclose this into here. Pass an array as props. There are listed to-do components in the code editor. When rendering each list from the to-do component, pass in a tasks property where when rendering each list, tasks property assigned to an array of to-do tasks. Okay. Pass this one here. Then access this tasks array in the list component. Tasks that join comma build error. Let's just destructure it there. What's wrong? Let's bring that back. Please, tasks. Array walk. Console this one here. Props. Okay, props that tasks that join comma. Okay, what's happening here? Props the tasks that join. Okay, I see. You should have a tasks here too. So there are two lists. Walk, run. Pa-walk. Run. Ruin. The second list representing the task partner should have 3 more items. So code. Use default props. The code editor shows a shopping cart component. Define default props on this component which specify a prop item with a value of 0. Shopping cart dot default props equals items 0. Shopping cart. Override default props. So we have a default props here dot quantity. Remember the syntax to add the prop to a component looks similar to how you add HTML attributes. However, since the value for quantity is an integer, it won't go in quotes, but it should be wrapped in curly braces. For example, 100. This syntax tells JSX to interpret the value within the braces directly as JavaScript. So where do we change the quantity? 69. Sorry. Should be 10. Submit and go to the next challenge. Use prop types to define the prop types. The props you expect. Define prop types for the items component to require quantity as a prop and verify that it is a number. So items dot prop types equals quantity and number. Okay, sorry. Semicolon is for TypeScript interfaces and props. Okay. The shopping cart component should render. Number is not defined. Sorry. Can I use prop types here? Prop types the number. Prop types check requires quantity to be a number. Items quantity I'm not sure about this one. Should int work? Nope, number doesn't work either. So I'm gonna use prop types the number. So why is it item component should include the prop types check that requires a quantity to be a number? Prop types that number. Prop types that number. Okay, just wait a minute. Let's search this one. Prop type number is existing. Let's remove this one since the comment is change code below this line. Is required. Okay, I see. Access props using this props. Render an instance of the return temp password component in the parent component. render an instance, return temp password, return temp password, and then the parent component here, give return temp password the prop of temp password, okay, and assign it to a value that is 8 characters long. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, next, within the child, return temp password, access the temp password within the strong here, within the strong, this that props the temp password, okay. Review using props with stateless functional components. Okay, the code editor has a campsite component that renders a camper component as a child. Define the camper component and assign it camper component, and assign it default props of name camper bot, and then inside the camper component, render any code that you want, any code. Any code that I want. Camper is not defined. Define the camper component. Define. Should I create a React component camper? Class camper. Render return any. So not here. Inside the camper component, render any component that you want, but make sure to have one p element that includes only the name value. Okay, let's create a parenthesis here, div any, and the p, which that includes only the name value that is passed in the prop. So name equals Ralph, and then this dot props dot name. Okay. Finally, define prop types on the camper component to require name. Camper dot prop types. So name is, will prop types work here? String, that is required. Okay. Next challenge, create a stateful component. There is a component in the code editor that is trying to render a name property from its state. However, there is no state defined. So I'm going to define a state here with the name Ralph Largo. Run the tests. We're getting there. Render state in the user interface. In the code editor, my component is already stateful. Define an h1 tag in the component's render method, which renders the value of name from the component state. State.name. And then in Jsx any code variables. Okay. Submit and go to the next challenge. Render state in the user interface another way. So in the myComponentRender method, define a const called name, const name, and set it equal to the name value in the component state. And then next, in the return statement, render this h1 tag name. Okay, name. Here, rendered should be in an h1. Next, set state with this dot set state. Okay, there is a button element in the code editor which has an on-click handler. That this handler is trigger when the button receives a click event in the browser. So what am I going to do? Set the name property in state to equal the string React rocks. Where is the handle click? This dot set state name React rocks and a semicolon here, and then let's click here, run the tests. Okay, bind this to a class method. The code editor has a component with a state that keeps track of the text. It also has a method which allows you to set the text to you clicked here. However, the method doesn't work because it's using the this keyword, which is defined. Fix it by explicitly binding this to the handle click. On click equals this dot handle click that bind this. Let's try it. Okay, next one. Use state to toggle an element. My component has a visibility property. Currently, there's no way of updating the visibility property in component state. What should I do? The value should toggle back and forth between true and false. There is a click handler. Where's the click handler? Toggle visibility is missing here. So let's create a function toggle visibility. And then let's set state the visibility to the current state value. Okay, right there. And then vice versa. Finally, click the button. Console.log toggled, and then this that state that visibility. Let's bind this one. So there are two. That bind this. And then let's do this one. Now you see me. An anonymous function should be passed to set state. This should not be used inside set state. this should not be used inside the set state. Okay, let's change this into the other form, which is this one. So state equals visibility. Okay, state that visibility, and then this one. Let's try it if it works. Next challenge would be, hey, why are you not loading? Write a simple counter. Write a simple counter. So let's just ignore this for now. Let's depend on the tests. On click this dot increment. So let's do the increment first. Increment function and this dot state. So let's use the state. Don't forget to use parentheses here to return an object. Okay, counter would be state that count plus 1. Let's try if it works. Error on the browser. This dot increment dot bind this. Error in the browser. Increment. Console first. Console.log works. So it's working. We forgot the set state, not that this dot state. Set state. So it's incrementing now. Next one would be the decrement. Let's just copy this to avoid typographical errors, and copy this one also, but in this case let's negate the value. Let's bind this, and then the reset button would be, let's bind this again, so we will not wait, what? Reset. This that set state count is 0. Okay, run the tests, and that's it. Create a controlled input. Okay, what are we going to do here? The code editor has the skeleton of a component called controlled input. To create a controlled input element, first create a method handle change. So handle change. Oops. It's under the constructor. Handle change that has a parameter event. When the method is called, it receives an event object that contains a string text from the input element. You can access this string with event.target.value inside the method. Update the input property of the component state with the new string. In the render method, create the input element above the h4 tag. Input element, and then update the input property of the component state with this new string. In the render method, create the input element, add the value attribute. Value should be value attribute, which is equal to the input property of the component state. Okay, this that state that input, and then add an onChange event handler. onChange event handler, and set to the handle change method. This dot handle change. when you type in the box, the text is processed by the handle change. So let's try to console the event. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Event dot target dot value. Okay. Let's set state. Typing in the message, update the element, the state, blah 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 blah. Okay, this that set state input would become the event. That target that value. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Bind this to this function. Okay, we didn't try. Try it harder, Papa. Submit and go to the next challenge. Create a control form. Okay, the my form component is set up with an empty form with the submit handler. The submit handler will be called when the form is submitted. We've added a button which submits the form. You can see it has the type set to submit, indicating it is the button controlling the form. So add the input element in the form. Input element in the form, and then set its value. What would be the value? Input value is this that state that input, and then on change attributes like the last challenge. On change equals this that handle change that bind this. You should then complete the handle submit method so that it sets the component state property submit. What? You should then complete the handle submit method so that blah blah blah. Handle submit. Let's console the event. No, never mind. Let's call the event probability world. Finally, create an h1 tag after the form. Which renders the submit value from the component state. This dot state dot submit. Okay, let's set state this that set state submit. Let's use the function. I mean the callback. So the submit would become the state dot input. Let's try it. Catch. Set state. Sorry. Catch. Run the test. And there you go. Next is pass state as props to child components. The my app component is stateful and renders a navbar component as a child. Pass the name property in its state. Name is this that state that name. Here is props that name. This that props that name. Submit and go to the next challenge. Pass a callback as props. So it's too many. The my app component should render. The get input component should render. Okay. We have no choice but to read this one. There are three components outlined in the code editor. The myApp component is the parent that will render the get input and the render input child components. The parent that will render the get input and add the get input component to render method in myApp. Get input here. Okay, next, then pass it as a prop called input assigned to input value. Wait. Add the get input component to the render method in myApp, then pass it as a prop called input. Then pass it a prop input assigned to input value from myApp state. This that state that input value from myApp state. Also create a prop called handle change. Okay, handle change that by sorry, this that handle change. Should I bind this? Next, add render input to the render method in myApp. Render method, input. Then create a prop called input in this the state that input value. Okay, once you are finished, you will be able to type to the input field in the get input. Component this updates. I think that's it. Use the lifecycle method. Component will mount. The component will mount method is called before the render method when a component is being mounted to the DOM. Log something to the console within the component will mount. You may want to have your browser console open to see the output. Console.log. Sorry. I don't need to see the console, so let's just skip that one. Use the lifecycle method. Component did mount. Component did mount is already here. Okay, let's use the active users. Add event listeners. Attach an event listener in the component did mount method for key down events and have these events trigger the callback handle key press. You can use document.add event listener, which takes the event in quotes as the part of the argument and the callback as the second argument. So component did mount key down handle key press is the callback function, and upon unmounting, let's remove the event listener for key down. Okay, Oops. My component should render a div element which wraps on each one tag. Let's comment this out for now and this one too. So what's happening? It says change code below this line. I'm sorry, I'm gonna post this for a while. I'm gonna pee. So 23:15. Okay. Okay, I'm back and let's try to run the tests again. A key down listener should be attached to the document in component with mount. So document that add event listener key down. Okay. How about that? Handle key press is not defined. This dot handle key press. Key code of undefined. This dot handle key press. How about this dot handle key press dot bind this? Okay, we got 3 now. Let's just remove the event listener here. And why is nothing's happening? The key down listener should be removed from the document that mount. I already uncommented that out. Remove event listener. Copy this one and copy key down here. Okay. Copy this one and let's reload. Oh my god. Component will unmount. Okay, step brother, I'm stuck. What is wrong here? Try to get a hint. Okay, we should pass this one. I thought it's good here. It's good that we just pass the key down. Keyword this dot handle key press. Okay, let's go to the next challenge. Optimize re-renders with should component update. So far, if any component receives new state or new props, it re-renders itself and all its children. This is usually okay, but Reacts provide a lifecycle method you can call when child components receive new state or props and declare specifically if the component should update or not. The method is should component update and it takes next props and next state as parameters. Okay. The should component update method is added in the component called only events. Currently, this method returns true, so only events re-renders every time it receives new props. Modify the method so only events updates if the value of its new props is even. Click the add button and watch the order of the events in your browser console as the lifecycle hooks are triggered. So it's like that. Only renders. So if next props, let's console the next props first. Next props, value. How about the next state? Null. So we're not going to use the next state in this challenge, I suppose. Return next props dot value modulo operator 2 equals 0. Let's check. Okay, that's it. Next, introducing inline styles. Okay, add a style attribute to the div, the code editor, to give the text a color of red and font size of 72. Style of, what do you say? Color of red and font size of 72. Run the tests. Okay, add inline styles in React. If you have a large set of styles, you can assign a style object to a constant to keep your code organized. And comment the styles constant and declare an object with 3 style properties. Give the div a color of purple. So purple and a font size of 40. And what else? A border of 2px solid purple. And the style attribute is equal to the styles constant. Style is styles. Next challenge, use advanced JavaScript in React render method. So in the code provided, the render method has an array that contains 20 phrases to represent the answers found in the classic 1980s Magic 8 Ball toy. The button click event is bound to the ask method. Here is the ask. So each time the button is clicked, a random number will be generated and stored as the random index in state. Okay. On line 52, delete the string change may assign the answer const so your code randomly access a different index. Okay, so possible answers index would be this that state that random index. Okay, finally insert the answer const inside the p tag. Answer const inside the p tag. 1 2. Okay, I don't get it. But it works, so we're good. Let's go to the next challenge. Render with an if else condition. If else condition. My component contains a boolean in its state which tracks whether you want to display some element in the UI or not. The button toggles the state of this value. Currently, it renders the same UI every time. So that if this displays true, I mean, rewrite the render method with an if else statement so that if displays true, you return the current markup. Otherwise, return the markup without the h1 element. So this is going to become this.state.display. Okay, will this work? Will this work? Okay. Oh, sorry. I should use the if else method. I'm pretty sleepy, so I'm ignoring the rules. If this that state that display is true, return what is the h1 earlier? Okay, let's encapsulate here. Let's first create a fragment and then okay, I forgot how to if here. If return else, oops, I'm already in the return statement, sorry. What am I doing wrong? If use of ternary operator will not blah 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 blah. Just give me a minute. I'll figure this out. Okay, what is wrong here? What the? Reset all code. Okay, change the code below this line. If this that state that display let's copy this one. Sorry about that, I'm a little confused. This is a pretty bad code actually, but use of ternary operator will not pass here, so let's just run the test and submit to the next challenge. Submit and go to the next challenge, I mean. Okay. Hey, let's go to the next challenge. Use the more concise conditional. So I think my answer earlier is the answer on this challenge. So see, it's more cleaner than the previous one. Use a ternary expression for conditional rendering. Okay. The code editor has three constants defined with the check user age components render method. They are called button 1, button 2, and button 3. Each of these is assigned a simple JSX expression representing a button element. First, initialize the state of check user age with input and user age both set to values to an empty string. Okay. What did you say? First, initialize the state with input and user age. Oh, sorry. sorry, this dot state. Okay. And then once the component is rendering information to the page, user should have a way to interact with it. Okay, let's do this. Within the component's return set up a ternary expression that implements the following logic. When the page first loads, render the submit button 1 to the page. Button 1 to the page. Button 1 to the page. So this that okay, this that state that user age equals like that. Render the button 1. Okay, this that submit. And then if a user enters a number less than 18, render button 3. So this that state that user age. Okay, let's just negate this one. Equals 18. I mean greater than 18. You shall pass. Button is 2. Else is button 3. Okay, where is the okay, let's not treat this as a component. Let's just render. This one too. When a number greater than or equal to 18 is entered into the input element and the buttons click, the buttons in your text should read, you may enter 18. Okay, I think we should add in button 2 is you may enter, so equals. Next challenge is render conditionally from props. Okay. The code editor has two components that are partially defined for you. A parent called game of chance and a child called results. They are used to create a simple game where the user presses a button to see if they win or lose. First, you'll need a simple expression that randomly returns a different value every time it is run. You can use math.random. This method returns a value between 0 and 1 inclusive each time it's called. So for 50-50 odds, use math.random greater than or equal to 0.5 in your expression. Handle click. Change code here, math.random. Math.random. This so use math.random greater than or equal to this expression will return true 50% of the time. 50 on line 30, replace the comment with expression to complete the variable declaration. So where is the expression used? Okay, expression. Let's not that random. Expression is greater than 0.5, and then results would be here. Pass the expression. Called 50/50. And in the results component, write a ternary expression to render the text you win or you lose based on 50/50 prop that is being passed. This that props that 50/50. Okay, next is you win, you lose. Okay, run the tests. Each time the button is clicked, the counter state should be incremented by a value of 1 and a single p element should be rendered to the DOM that contains the text turn, where n is the value of the counter state. Counter is counter plus 1. This that state plus 1. That state that counter. Let's just wait. Okay, that will do, and let's go to the next challenge. Change inline CSS conditional based on component state. The code editor has a simple controlled input. You want to style border red if the user types more than 15 characters on the text in the input box. Add a condition to check for this, and if the condition is valid, set the input border style to 3px solid red. Input style equals so input style, let's try to, so that is the expected result if I type in 15 characters. Will this do? This that state that input that length, let's use here, equals greater than or equal to 15, else. Let's try if this works, but if not, 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 2. The input tag should be styled with the border of 3px only if, so let's remove that one. Okay, remove this one too, and we're good to go. Run the tests. Use array.map to dynamically render elements. Okay. The code editor has most of the my to-do list component setup. Some of this code should look familiar if you completed the controlled form challenge. You'll notice a text area and a button, along with a couple of methods that track their states, but nothing is rendered to the page yet. Inside the constructor, create a this.state object and define two states. User input should be initialized as an empty string, and to-do list should be initialized as an empty array. Next, delete the comment in the render. Here, delete the comment next to the items variable. In its place, map over to-do list. Okay, let's read this slowly. In its place, map over the to-do list array stored in the component's internal state. Okay, why here? Next to the items variable. So this that state that to do list the map return where is the items used. Okay, here, and then okay, render an LI for each item. Got it. And then what? Okay, let's run the tests. Submit and go to the next challenge. I think this is the last one. Give sibling elements a unique key attribute. The code editor has an array with some front-end frameworks and a stateless functional component named frameworks. Frameworks need to map the array to an unordered list. Much like in the last challenge, finish writing the map, call back to return an li element for each framework in the render framework front-end frameworks array. This time, make sure to give each li a key attribute. The li element should also contain text from front-end frameworks. So let's do front-end frameworks. Let's just copy this to avoid spelling mistakes. Math return li, close this one, and then key is equal to, let's add an index here, and that will be the index. Okay. Oh, 96%. Use array filter to dynamically filter an array. In the code editor, my component state initialized with an array of users. So return array containing the users whose online property is true. Okay, users online. Users online. this. Let's state the users that filter q dot online, something like that, and map this into q, return li q, and then key will be q. Render error. Okay, let's bring back null here. Okay, so there is an issue in this one. Let's try again. Users online that map q, return li of nice. How about q that username, and then key would become q that username. Run the tests, and it started raining here, so my voice should be will not be clear. Submit and go to the next challenge. Render React on the server with render to string. The render to string method is provided on React DOM server, which is available here as a global object. The method takes one argument, which is React element. Use this to render up to a string. Render to string is not defined. Which is provided by the React DOM server. And then use this to render up to a string. Render to string. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.